Hey, good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls and I'm your host. And today I have such an amazing guest on. Her name is Allie Hopper. Hopper, Hopper, Allie Hopper. And Allie is, you'll see, she's absolutely amazing. She has such an incredible story. You're not going to even believe the battles she's fighting and has fought. So I would love it if you do me a favor and share this out to everybody that you know. Share it out. Let's get a lot of people on here to hear Allie's story. And then I won't have to guilt trip you into sharing it later. So thank you. I appreciate it in advance. Stay with us. I'm going to have the one and only Allie Hopper joining. Okay, we're back. Let me bring Allie on. Allie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Ken.
I'm grateful to have you here. I'm very grateful. It took a long time to get you here, Allie.
It did, but finally the stars aligned and here we are.
Here we are. I'm so excited. So I do need to share this in the groups. So just entertain everybody while I do that. I'm just kidding. So Allie, we met on X, and I've heard you talk many times, and I think your energy and your spirit and just everything about you just radiates positivity and love, and you just radiate and glow this amazing energy. And I'm like, I like people with good energy, so I like to have those people on my show. And that's one of the reasons I had you on, is I think you're just amazing. So thank you for
Aw.
being here. And so why don't you let's start with you telling everybody kind of where you were born and raised, where it all began for you.
Yeah, so I was born in Chicago, Illinois,
Oh,
and raised kind of all over the place. My dad was in corporate America and he's also an attorney, so he's got his electrical engineering degree. He's also got his law degree, and so he was constantly going through job transitions, trying to go up the corporate ladder, and so we would relocate to find different opportunities. So that would bring us from Illinois. We ended up living in Costa Rica for 2 years. We lived in Mexico for a little bit, Tennessee, Pennsylvania. And then most of my, I guess you would say, childhood from about middle school on. So all of that was prior to middle school. Middle school on was in Minnesota. And then
oh,
from there, I went to Wisconsin schools.
my gosh. Okay. So when you I've only been to Minnesota one time, and I was speaking at a conference in Vegas, and it's hot in Vegas literally all the time. And so I get on the plane and there's lightning everywhere, right? And they had to delay anyway, I had a layover in Minneapolis. First time ever to Minneapolis. And I get there and they delayed the flight in Vegas too long, and I missed my connector and had to spend the night in Minneapolis. And I was not prepared for Minneapolis weather. I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt.
When were you? What time of the year was it?
I don't remember. I know it was a time of the year for it to be about 30 degrees in Minneapolis, and it was 90 in Vegas. I
Yeah.
was not
Um,
prepared.
yeah.
Like, I remember standing on the outside waiting on an Uber to take me to the hotel, and I'm like, it's really not warm here. Like, it's cold. Like,
Yeah, so if it's 30 degrees, it was probably either fall or spring.
I
So
think it yeah, it was, I think it was fall, but anyway, when so you do you still live up there?
no, we actually after 2021 we moved to Florida, and now I
Okay.
am so proud to call this my home. I've never felt home anywhere really in any other state that I've lived, but living here, I am a proud Floridian, and I do call this place home. I love it. I love everything about not just going outside in nature, but I love everything about the people here, and the different types of culture that exist here. It's just, I
Yeah,
love it.
it's amazing. We moved to Texas in 2022, so I can relate. Like, I left
Yeah.
Ohio and I'm like, there's something about freedom that just feels good,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yep.
like I wow, you mean you guys don't really? Nobody's trying to force you to wear a mask? Are you sure? like it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. It was definitely interesting times. I mean, we lived in
Uh,
Minnesota during that time frame, and so we lived through that. The Summer of Love
oh,
started in Minneapolis, so that was very intense experience. And then we just saw the writing on the wall, and we're like, we need to relocate to a state that more aligns with our values, our morals, and how we want to raise our children. And so that's really what prompted this. We had solid jobs, we had a beautiful home and friends and stability there, but it really wasn't going to provide the type of future. I didn't feel like it was going to provide the type of future for my kids,
yeah.
um, that me and my husband wanted. So
That's
we
awesome though.
and we haven't looked back.
I get it. I absolutely get it. Hey, Drax is joining us. Hey, Drax, good to see you, brother.
Hi,
So,
Drax.
so, so, okay. So, did you finish high school in Wisconsin? Then
So I
is that
finished
right?
high school in Minnesota, and then
Minnesota.
I went
Okay.
to UW schools for college, and they had a national student exchange program. So for my last year, instead of going international and racking up more debt, I went to a national. I went through the national exchange program, and I was able to study my last year in UNC Wilmington. So I actually got to go to North Carolina, and
Oh
that is
wow.
where I met my husband.
Oh wow. And you drug him up to Minnesota
Oh, yes.
out of.
Yes, he doesn't let me forget it.
Is he from North Carolina?
He's from Massachusetts, so he's used to the
Oh
cold, but Massachusetts has a lot more it's a lot more diverse there for
yeah,
things to do, and, different places to go get food, and New
yeah.
England is very different from the Midwest.
It is. Yeah, but you don't have the lakes in Massachusetts, so there's that.
That's true.
So okay, when you talk about what happened after, and here's the thing, and we'll get into what you do. But I always think, okay, there is hey, there's Buckster too. Thank you, brother, for sharing this out.
Hi,
Um
Buck.
so when you I always think, okay, something with our childhood
Ah, there's
is
Shell.
I love Shell.
I love Shell.
I do
We
too.
love
She's
Shell.
amazing. She's amazing. We have so many rock stars on here. So there I always think, okay, there's something about our childhood that kind of pushes us in the direction that we go as adults. I firmly believe there's something that happens to everybody in childhood that makes them go, I'm going to be an astronaut because I got to get off this planet, or I'm kidding, but something happens to push us in the direction that we go. Does anything come to mind when I say that? Like, yeah, it was whatever that kind of pushed me.
So I think one of the biggest things from my childhood was living in Costa Rica. My parents were very intentional with not putting us in an English immersion school. They wanted us in there with Costa Rican students. They wanted us
Mm.
to acclimate and get used to the Costa Rican culture, get used to speaking the Spanish language. And so, it was full immersion right away. I was 5 years old and I was fluent. About a couple weeks to a couple months later, at that age you pick up things so quickly, you're like a sponge. And I never understood that until I became a little bit older, and I really appreciated that because it gave me a different look on life, right? So I came back from living in Costa Rica and then going to these other states, and I always felt like I kind of stood out, like I never really fit in with the crowd. I felt like I looked at things differently, I treated people differently. I was very sensitive to people being bullied. So very early on, I was always the one that stood up for those that were getting bullied. And I just was always very sensitive to people, and if they felt like they were hurting or they were in pain or they needed something, I was always very sensitive to that. And I think a lot of it stems from living in Costa Rica, seeing true third world poverty, or I believe they're a third world country, um, and living under socialism, right? So having that experience at such a young age, traveling so often, starting over every single year, it changes you and it changes the way that you look at things. So I always had this call not only to serve people, but I was a proud and still am a proud American. So my call to serve started with me wanting to join the military. I wanted to be in the Air Force. I wanted to be Air Force JAG. Unfortunately, God didn't have it in the cards for me. I had an autoimmune condition that prevented me from joining the military. But I still felt that call to serve in a different way, and God had other plans for me. So, that's kind of where I'm at now. But it was interesting because my husband served. And so while I didn't get to directly serve in the military, my husband did. And when he got out, I was with him when he was in the military. So I experienced active duty life, or being the spouse of an active duty member for a while, got to experience that, got to see, the positives, the negatives. And then once he got out, I got to support him as a military spouse, supporting a military veteran. And then again, got to see the positives and the negatives. And so I really started to develop my voice early on, supporting our active duty members, supporting our military, supporting our veterans. And then that slowly progressed and led to me being more active and developing my voice in politics, which all preceded what I do now.
Right, right. And I was thinking about our interview this morning, and I'm like, there's really probably, I mean, you've testified in front of Congress. There's probably nothing I could throw at you that you haven't experienced. Like, I'm like, I can't stump this one. No way. Not that I would try, but so talk about when so here you are in North Carolina finishing up college, right? Finishing
Mhm.
college.
Yep.
Um and you met your husband. You both I assume you graduate the same was it the same year? You both graduated at the same time?
So he was actually serving in the Marine Corps. He was
Oh,
stationed at Camp Lejeune, and I was actually
okay.
going to school at UNC Wilmington. And because it's so close to Camp Lejeune, a lot of the military members would come down on the weekends to hang out and kind of get away from base life. And so that's how we met. Was he was
Okay.
serving in the military, and I was finishing my last year of school.
Okay. So you graduate and like a Buck was in the Marine Corps. Like does your husband also eat crayons like Buck does or
Yeah, I can't remember what Buck said his favorite color was, but yes, we did do a crayon cake one year. I
Oh my
don't think
god.
real crayons were used in the process of making the cake, but it was very funny.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm sure
yeah.
Buck's favorite color is red. So but talk about like the day that you graduate from college and what was your degree in?
Business marketing.
Business marketing. Okay. So you graduate, you probably had zero debt, and I'm kidding. But you graduate from college and you're like, okay, I'm ready to go take on the world. Here we go. Right? What did you do? What was your Did you go get a marketing job? What did you do?
So my last year was when I met my husband, but we were just friends at the time. He had deployed to Afghanistan, and we actually stayed in contact the whole time he was in Afghanistan, just as friends, which actually was ideal because we really got to know each other for who each other was without trying to put up a front or try to impress the other person. And then when he got back was when we started dating. We were dating for about a year, and then we got engaged and we got married.
Were you still
Which
in
was
North
it.
Carolina?
I was,
Okay.
um,
Okay.
which was interesting because at the time he didn't have a desire to get married while he was in the military, but it was his idea. He wanted to get married, and so we ended up getting married halfway through his military career, and then once I graduated, stayed and I worked out there, not marketing yet because it's very tough to get a professional job when you're an active military spouse. You never know
Yeah.
if you're going to get moved around. And so he ended up going on his second deployment. And I didn't want to be in a military town by myself. We were married at this time. And I got married, I think I was around 23 or 20. Yeah, about 23. And my husband had just turned 21,
Oh
and
wow.
his parents were living in Hawaii. And so I said, "All right, well, why don't when you're deployed, I'm going to go stay with your parents. I'd rather, be around family and they're in a really cool place." So I actually, put everything in storage and lived in Hawaii for 7 months.
That sounds miserable.
It was so awful. It was torture.
I'm
Please send me
sure.
back there.
I know. Oh my gosh. So, and Minnesota wasn't an option. Is that is so so okay, so you live did you work? Did you get a job
I
in
did.
Hawaii?
I
Did you
did.
really?
I never wanted to rely explicitly on someone else. I've always worked since I was in high school. So I got a job.
Okay.
I, at the time, was a bartender. And so I was bartending in Hawaii. And then I was trying to keep busy with different things. So I got scuba certified. I was going on all sorts of hikes. I had met people when I was there. So I was just motivated to have a good solid savings when he got back from his deployment. So yeah, that's exactly what we had. I got to experience Hawaii, save money, and then when he got back, we reestablished ourselves in North Carolina. And then when he got out of the military was when we moved to Minnesota.
Why? Sorry,
I
hold it.
know.
I should word that differently. Oh, that's great. So what made you decide to move to Minnesota?
Oh gosh. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you sound like you sound like him right now too. His name's Ryan. You sound like Ryan. I'd be like, "Yeah, Ken
He's like,
agreed
"Hmm."
with you. Ken was giving me grief today too." Um so we found out when he was getting out of the military that we were expecting, and
Okay.
my family was up there. And so his family was in Massachusetts, my family was in Minnesota still, and so I hadn't seen them since I had moved out to North Carolina originally. And so we went to Minnesota. That's where my parents were, that's where my siblings were, and that's where we were for a couple of years. His side of the family started joining us over there for a little bit before we all left and went to Florida.
So I'm just going. I'm sitting here thinking. Of course, we did. I don't think we knew then what we know now, right? But I'm sitting here going, okay, I'm going to flip a coin, and we're going to decide on which communist state we would like to live in, and the lesser of the evils, right? But no,
Exactly.
I'm kidding because I look, I saw it, and we'll get into the politics part, but I saw it in Ohio, and I'm like, and it's Ohio's a red state for the most part, but I'm sitting there going, there's some rhino stuff happening here, and I can kind of see it after the whole 2020 BS thing. So
Yeah.
let's talk about what did you okay, so you had a baby in Minnesota. Um and that had to be fun moving while you're pregnant. But so to Minnesota, by the way. But you moved to Minnesota. You have a baby. Did were you working? What was happening? Your husband's out of the military. He's what's life like at that in Minnesota?
Yeah, so actually getting out of the military was extremely tough, and I was very surprised at the lack of support systems that military have as they're transitioning out. They get like a couple week course, if that, um, and really a lot of those guys that are sitting in there, what you're getting thrown all this information. What do you think they're retaining? Just a small piece of it because you're getting so much information, and if you haven't experienced and lived out on your own yet and experienced the real world or worked in the real world, it's a really big transition and a really big shock. And many of these guys and women, but many of these service members are coming out with health problems. They're coming out with mental health problems and in need of support. And so it the military loved me, and I say that tongue in cheek because I always made sure that my husband was taken care of. I made sure that what I was asking of the military was logical and reasonable, but I also held them accountable, which they didn't like. They're like, who is this person? So for example, when he was about to get out, he only had a couple weeks left and they didn't have them working. And I said, well, he needs to take an exam at this community college. And they wanted us to get written paperwork that he was going to be there. Otherwise, they wouldn't approve him to go. And I called the community college and they said, we can't give you written paperwork because it's up to you to show up. We can just let you know that this is testing time, but we're not going to give you a piece of paper with your name explicitly on it. And so no one was budging. And so I called Buxter probably knows this. I called the family readiness officer and I was like, look, someone needs to help me out here because no one's budging. And this military member needs to take his test. He's about to get out in a couple weeks and they're sitting in their barracks doing nothing and they're sitting on the field doing nothing. So someone needs to help me out here. And then they finally released him to go take his test. But it was things like that, where he got all his medical exams done for disability before he even got out. So his first payment for disability hit within a month of him being out. Many of his friends didn't get it for about a year.
Oh my
And
god.
yeah, and so there's no support for these military members if they don't have an established skill set that they can use out in the real world. It becomes really challenging, especially if you're an infantryman, unless you're trying to go in and teach people how to shoot. It becomes really challenging. So when we moved back to Minnesota, I was working marketing for a real estate company, and my husband got hired by a corporation that actually trained him to weld. And that was really a blessing because, like I said, these military members, if they're infantry especially, they're not coming out with many transferable skills unless they're in mechanics or working on planes. The front lines, they didn't have the skill set that corporate America was looking for. And so this corporation was actually willing to hire him, train him how to weld, and he actually excelled in that.
Wow. So, Bucks, but I don't know if you saw Buck's comment I threw up on the screen, but family unreadiness officer usually. So what you're saying is you've kind of always been a feisty one that'll go after the jugular vein if necessary.
Guilty as charged. I like to blame my parents and my ethnicity on that. I am part Italian, part Mexican, so it is a kind of a feisty, spicy combo. So
Oh God, no wonder you love Shell so much. Holy crap. Don't ever talk about drones around Shell, by the way. Holy moly.
it makes your
Um,
eye twitch.
I, kn- I know it does. It does. Oh my gosh. So Oh God, here we go. Viva la Mexican. Um, so you I'm sorry, we're
It's okay.
this is going off the rails now. So you made I mean the bottom line is you made shit happen. Like you you made it happen. Okay, so you're in Minnesota, you have a child, you're working marketing for a real estate company, your husband's welding, right? He's a welder. Um, how were things going? How what year was this, and how were things going?
Oof. Okay. So my daughter was born in 2015, and then, God blessed us with a second one very short, very quickly after. It was in God's plan, certainly not ours, but we respected God's plan. And so it was interesting because I had never been involved really in politics up until this point. I was around 24 years old, 24 or 25. And so, found out we were expecting again, working. And then I decided, so my family and I, we've always been fighters. We have always fought for what we believe is right. We've always been conservative. We've always been Christian, but we always have fought for what is right. But at that time, I wasn't really engaged in politics. So when I had moved back, my parents were kind of letting me know what was going on in Minnesota and that they were involved with the local party and that the state representative of our area, Tara Mack, had a PR nightmare. She was, it was like a whole big mess. So she was supposed to run again, and she decided at the endorsing convention not to run again. And so the entire local party was kind of thrown for a loop because they were all expecting to endorse her for her reelection campaign, and she pulled out at the endorsement. Event. And so they had to reschedule that from March until May, knowing that the election was in November, knowing that it wasn't going to be an incumbent and it was a very purple district in a very, very blue state. We knew that the left had their eyes on this seat. We knew that there was going to be, thousands of dollars thrown at this seat specifically, not just for House and Senate, but for the congressional level. Jason Lewis was running at the time. And so I'm pregnant, and I decide, my family and I are like, well, I'll just throw my name into the hat for the endorsement. We were one of four or five people, not expecting anything. And then comes the endorsement convention that had been rescheduled in May. We all give our speeches. We all do the whole endorsing convention thing. And then I get endorsed. And then my family and I
Wow.
look at each other. We're like, whoa, okay, what now? We've never run a campaign before. And I'm literally 6 months pregnant,
Oh my
endorsed
gosh.
for a hot seat in Minnesota, which was crazy. You can imagine the political like happenings in the background.
Oh my
So
god.
the state capitol had already picked out who they had wanted, and they had already through their support, they had already given this person a staffer, investing in t-shirts and signs and stuff like that. So comes here comes the endorsing convention, and I get endorsed. All of a sudden,
Wow.
I didn't know, but then looking back, I would have seen all the politicos jump on the phone calling the Capitol saying, we got a problem. You know, our person didn't win and we don't know who this person is. Um,
Right. Right. She's
so
feisty, we know that.
so here we are disrupting the process again. But
Oh my god.
we had never run a campaign before, got endorsed in May. The election was in November, a very, very short window for running against a Democrat who had started in like November. So they had a full year. We had about, I don't know, 6, 7 months.
Wow.
And yeah. And so
You
it
should
was
write a
very,
book called 180 Days.
I know,
Or so
right? It was so challenging. It was so challenging, but The hardest part for us was raising money, especially in a blue state, especially given the climate of what was going on. This is
Yeah.
2016 at the time. And so we were running when Trump had just announced that he was going to run.
Wow.
And so everyone was up in arms, especially in Minnesota. They were not Trump fans. And so
Right.
they would always ask at the door, "Oh, are you running? Do you support Trump?" And so
Wow.
messaging was tough. Um, Door knocking though, we out door knocked everybody. Our team, as far as the freshman candidates, we
Yeah.
out door knocked everybody and we outworked everybody. We didn't outraise everybody, but we outworked everybody. I had a baby in August.
Wow.
Uh my staffer, I almost gave him a heart attack. He's like, "Please, please don't go into labor when I'm literally door knocking with you. I don't know what to do." And I was like, "Don't worry, you're good, you're good." So, and then I'm out door knocking 3 days later.
After having the baby? Oh
Yeah.
my god.
And
Wow.
so we didn't win the race. We were about 4 points behind. But what was interesting, Ken, and I'll be very honest with you,
And this what seat was this for again real quick?
this is for state representative in
Okay.
57A. So that
Okay.
was Minnesota,
Yeah.
and it was Dakota County area. So what was interesting about this race, and I'll be very honest with you, every single thing is like God led. So we go to bed at about 10 o'clock the night of the election, and all of a sudden, all systems go down. All systems go down until 2 in the morning. They've never had this happen. It's the only one of two counties that black out in Minnesota. And
Mm.
the congressional seat was a very, very highly contested seat. Goes out. All of a sudden, all seats flip to Democrats at 2 in the morning.
Well, isn't that convenient?
And they were at the time, and I don't quote me on this because I have a whole election integrity file. So I'll get to that in a second. But at the time, I believe they were the only two districts that had the Dominion software.
Right, of course. I was just getting ready to say that. They had to have
Yes.
had Dominion. Wow.
So what's interesting about that is that, we're looking into it. We were disappointed. We're like, well, that's weird, a software glitch. 2020 comes around and my parents decide they're going to, I think it was 2020. Yeah. And my parents decide they're going to run for office. They're going to run for state rep and state senate. And, they do the whole thing, outwork everybody, even during COVID situations. That was so challenging. Um, and then all of a sudden, a majority of the districts in Minnesota, they're at 100% reporting by 10 o'clock. Systems go out, and then 2 in the morning, the seats completely flip. Seats
Can,
completely flip.
okay. So, can I say something?
Yes.
I better be careful. I don't want to get us shut down. It pisses me off so bad what you're talking about. Like this, I don't think there's anything in politics that pisses me off more. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
No,
I just
so
had to
what's
say that.
interesting is that I remember this like it
Mm.
was yesterday. So the election happened, and then we started seeing it happen, because it was the presidential election. We started seeing it happen in multiple states. And so dots started connecting, and we're like, this something doesn't smell right about this. So we worked with our state GOP. We developed a election integrity team, Minnesota election integrity team, and we have audits, of all the precinct audits. We actually, in 2 weeks, scheduled people to be at 67 of the 80 something precincts, which no one had ever attended. And in two
Wow.
weeks, we got eyes on every single audit. During COVID, they were stonewalling. They were changing locations, changing dates and times. They did not want people. They had caught on that we were having people at those audits. They did not want people at those audits. We had given them forms to document anything that's weird. We had said, here's the contact, here's the email. If you document anything weird, document exactly what you see. And just, we sent everyone out to 67 of 80 something districts.
Oh my God.
We're starting to gain momentum in the election integrity fight. And what's interesting is that Minnesota wasn't even a swing state. So we file an election contest. In the state of Minnesota, it looks like a lawsuit, but it's not, but it follows a very similar process. And so we file a local congressional level or contest, a district level contest. And guess who signs on the opposing side?
D- don't say Tim Walls.
No, no, no.
No.
Perkins Coie.
Wow.
So you get 7 attorneys from Perkins
Wow.
Coie, a New York law firm, signing on to our small congressional district election contest.
Wow.
If we're not a swing state, why would 7 Perkins Coie attorneys sign on to our election contest
That is
in
insane.
Minnesota? It wasn't even a statewide contest. It was just a single congressional district. I mean, we filed in multiple congressional districts, but we did not file a statewide contest. We did
Wow.
not contest the election, at a statewide level, but listed was, our Secretary of
Hmm.
State. And so you get Mark Elias tweeting about our stuff. And we're like, why are you even worried about Minnesota if we're not a swing state, So we started putting things together. We started seeing it just wrought with waste, with fraud, with abuse, as far as not being able to see election audits, as far as ballots literally being brought in someone's purse and brought into a ballot count. I mean, everything that people were talking about, we saw and we documented. They
Wow.
went after us viciously. Then, the George Floyd thing happens. COVID is rampant. Minnesota had shut down entirely. We had curfews. Tim Waltz had set up that report your neighbor hotline, um, so that you could call on your neighbors if more than 6 or something people were gathering. If you were out on the road, law
Hmm.
enforcement could stop you because you had to have papers saying you were an essential worker. And then we had the Summer
Unbelievable.
of Love.
I just,
So,
yeah, you're bringing up some. So yeah, I like. I don't even know what to say about all that because now it's all the truth has come out,
yep.
and now I remember. I'm sure you've probably met him or know who I'm talking about. That guy Jovan Pulitzer. Have you seen
The name sounds
his
familiar.
He's a data scientist that studied the Dominion like big time, and he took it to all the powers that be, and they
Yeah.
completely ignored him
Yep.
completely. And I mean, he has scientific evidence that they cheated. Scientific.
Yeah.
And by the way, you've just been nominated to become the next governor of Florida, and Shell's going to either be the lieutenant governor or your chief of staff. Shell already said she's in. Drax said he'll be the groundskeeper
Oh
crew.
my
Um,
gosh.
and Shell's like, no, you're gonna be my right hand. I mean, there's an entire campaign occurring and you didn't even know it. So look at this. We've already
That's
got your
so
staff
funny.
put
I
together and
love them.
everything. So
So what's interesting though kind of about all of this is that the software piece was one piece. The other piece was the ballot harvesting that was going
yeah,
on. And so
right.
at the time, um at this time that we were living in Minnesota, Minnesota has the highest Somalian population next to Somalia. And
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
in Minneapolis, there was a lot of information coming out of there about ballot harvesting operations that were going on, where the men in the community were forcing the elders to request ballots. They'd take their ballots, fill them out, things like that. And
Wow.
so you get these elaborate ballot harvesting operations. You get, software that's either intentionally or unintentionally hackable.
Yep.
Um, and at the time, this is Ilhan Omar's area. This
Ugh.
is Keith Ellison's area. If anyone doesn't know who Keith Ellison is, I suggest you look him up. So this is all of those people, Steve Simon, things like that were coming out of Minnesota.
Yeah.
And yes, everyone was looking at Wisconsin because they were a swing state, but Minnesota, I think what they were worried about was that it was so egregious in Minnesota and they weren't trying to cover their tracks. They were only really trying to cover their tracks in swing states where we know that people would be looking a lot closer.
Yeah.
That it was so egregious in Minnesota that if we could prove it in Minnesota with them being so careless in, such a blue state, why would they try and cover their tracks too much? Then, it would start to blow the lid on a narrative. So again, you get COVID, you get this election integrity stuff, you get the summer of love where they're calling for law enforcement, they're calling for their heads. And the crime is skyrocketing throughout Minnesota, throughout the entire state. And my husband and I just looked at the writing on the wall. We're like, we have got to get out of here. Like, it is not worth living here anymore. We need to make a change. Um,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. And that was in 21.
Yes.
Okay. Um, what's interesting to me, and I suppose I think, I hope, that President Trump and man, he is wielding a mighty sword. I mean,
Yes.
he
It is.
really is. I really hope that like everybody, I hope that these people that did all this nefarious crap, um, I hope they pay for their crimes against us, the citizens of the United States. I mean, they
Yeah.
literally stole elections across the entire freaking country. It's insane. And the
Yeah.
evidence is out now. It's out. We're not
Yep.
making this up.
Yep.
It's, it's crazy.
And so we end up going to Florida, and very quickly after, we're in a district, that one of the few districts that decide that they want to go against Governor DeSantis and initiate a mask mandate in the county, in the district. And so my husband and I look at each other and we're like, literally, we just got here 3 days ago, and we're in one of the handful of counties that wants to go against Governor DeSantis. Are you kidding me? So we're just like, all right, well, here we go again. So a group of
Wow.
us decided that we were not going to abide by the mask mandate. We walked our kids to school. We faced whatever repercussions or consequences that schools were trying to put down on parents for not enforcing the mask mandate. And, parents really took a stand during that. And I was very proud to see how many parents came together and that were fighting on behalf of their children. But it was very sad to see. It was very sad to see the mask mandates. It was sad to see um, how many parents were put in such challenging situation, how many children were put in such challenging situations. Children were forced to literally eat lunch alone, or be segregated from the group if they weren't wearing a mask. You can
Jesus.
imagine elementary school children and how ostracized you feel when all of your schoolmates are wearing masks and you're not. We had to reiterate to our children, this is the right thing to do, even if you stand alone. And you're not standing alone. Every single morning, a group of parents and students would walk in together in protest of this. And so they could see that they were not alone, but still, it was very tough. Um,
That sounds
then,
rough.
then we quickly
I
get involved
remember.
in the.
Hang on. I remember. Our daughter was in like I want to say fifth or maybe sixth grade. What, sixth grade? Yeah, she's a sophomore now. Um, and I remember saying, "Stop." I said to my wife, stop with the mask bull
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And and my I remember my little girl getting so angry with me, saying, "No, I want to go to school. I want to see my friends." And she's like, "I'll wear the mask." She got really angry with me.
Yeah.
And I just remember, like, thinking, this is heartbreaking that our
Yeah.
children are so programmed. And she just wanted to see her friends. That's the only
Yeah.
reason she likes going to school, so she can see her friends. Look, my
Yeah.
wife's on here. She says, what does she say? Our daughter was in 5th grade and she did homeschool because of this. Yes. It was, oh my gosh, it was so you remember, you were there.
Yeah. It was awful.
Yeah.
In 2020, we were in Minnesota and the entire school system had shut down for a full year. But we had already enrolled our children in private school at the time, and private school enrollments were, they were long, long list,
Yeah,
waiting
yeah,
list
yeah.
after COVID because they were the only schools that were still open.
Yeah.
But they required our children to wear a mask, and it was just so devastating. It was either homeschool or at the time, go to private school. And so
Mm.
they wore masks and it was just heartbreaking to see. I mean, and you just got to think, my daughter's in kindergarten. They're like sitting there, "Oh, I like your mask better. Let's swap." Or, "Hey, they all have like runny noses and so they're using the mask to like wipe their noses." And I'm just sitting there like, "Ugh, it's so gross." Like it's
No.
so
I know.
gross. Like and so it was
Oh
just so
god.
bad. I
It
remember setting a
was.
bag on our laundry room and I'm like, every single day those masks get washed because it's disgusting. And
You know what's crazy is, here it is 5 years later and there are still idiots wearing masks. Driving alone still in their car wearing a mask. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, seriously.
and then the cloth ones,
Oh my god.
and then what killed me was when you would go buy the cloth ones, they would say made in China. And I'm like, yeah, so is your stinking virus. Like, thank you for selling us the
Right.
mask after you give us this virus. Like,
Right. Oh my
ridiculous.
god.
I literally felt like I was living the Twilight Zone. Like, is this real life? People wear.
It's
I remember traveling. Ken, did you ever see people wearing those like glass, like
yes.
face shield things? I
In
saw
their
it in the
car
airport.
alone.
Oh my gosh! I remember seeing it in the airport, and I'm like, this is some weird, weird stuff.
I will say, I was coming to Dallas a lot to speak at events during all of that, and I refused to wear a mask. I refused. So you drive across from Ohio, you would drive through Indiana, Illinois, down, and you hit in St. Louis, you go head south to Dallas. I'm driving to these events. I am not getting on an airplane and wearing a mask. Period.
Yeah,
And I'm seeing the videos of people refusing and they're getting arrested and banned for
yeah.
life and all this crazy I love Jesus, but I do swear a little. But anyway, sorry. But I'm seeing all of this stuff and I'm going, I am not getting on an airplane. I will punch somebody in the face. Like, I'm just like, I'm not wearing a mask. I'm going through Illinois,
Yeah,
of all
yeah,
places, like, you know all about it.
yeah.
I'm like, oh my god, I wanted to try to make it out of Illinois to use the bathroom, but it ain't gonna happen. I gotta stop. I stop at a gas station, Allie. This is so funny.
Oh
I
my
stop at this
gosh.
gas station, and I'm like, I'm looking around, and people are walking. Everybody's got a mask on, right? Except me. I get out, I walk in the side door of the gas station. It's long. I have to walk all the way across this giant thing to get to the bathroom. And there's a girl, 20-year-old girl at the front at the cash register going, "Sir, excuse me, sir." And I'm ignoring her. I'm just like,
Oh, yeah.
blinders on. She's like, "Sir." And I look over and she goes, waving a mask at me. "You have to wear a mask." And I go, "No, I have to pee. You have to wear a mask." And I just kept walking. And I went in the back. And oh
Oh
my
my
God, she was
gosh.
waiting outside the bathroom. And I just ducked out the side door. I'm like, I'm not dealing with you. But
It was
people
just
were
so insane.
psychotic about it. I mean,
It was
psychotic
insane.
about it.
Yes,
Anyway,
it was absolutely insane. I mean, I just remember plexiglass,
oh
everything, people wearing glasses and even the disposable masks, they'd reuse the disposable masks and I'm like that kind of defeats the purpose of them being disposable and that yeah, that's disgusting. And yeah, so
oh
I remember I worked in downtown Minneapolis, so I was a project manager for a tech company at the time. And during COVID, we had all worked remote and the Floyd riots had happened. And I remember a mass communication email going out saying how eventually we were going to go back into the office for like a day or two a week and how people needed to be socially distanced and this and that. And they were
ugh.
so cautious about COVID. I emailed back. I'm like, okay, but what about the rampant crime going on? Our city just burned, and that was literally a block and a half from our building. You have carjackings in broad daylight. What are we going to do about that? You want us to social distance in the office, but I'm afraid that I'm driving my car in and it's going to be carjacked. Like,
Right.
there's no communication about that. But facts are
Yeah,
pesky
well,
little
you can't
things.
you can't you can't use logic with them. That doesn't work.
No.
It
No, a
just
lot of these big corporations, I mean, they were woke and this one was definitely pushed an agenda on its employees. It definitely pushed a mindset on its employees. And I remember when I moved to Florida, I had asked before I moved if I could continue to work remote. They would give conditional approvals. And I said, I need to know because before I move, I need to know if this is approved so that I can buy a home when I get down there. And they said, yeah, absolutely. Like, we'll go through the approval process. You're good to go. Move down there, and they're delaying my approval process, but they're also asking me for my Vax card. And I'm
oh my
like,
god.
I'm in Florida. According to my state law, I don't have to provide, this information and also HIPAA. But facts are
Yeah.
pesky little things. Again, they still wanted my Vax card, and I didn't have a Vax card because I never got vaxed. And I'm like,
Right.
why do you need my Vax card? I'm in Florida. I mean, are you afraid you're going to get COVID through the Zoom call? Like, I don't understand. Something's like not jiving here. It's not making sense. And I said, well, I'm not going to give you my Vax card because you're not entitled to it. And they said, well, then you need to send us a picture of a COVID test every single week. And I said, I'm not doing that either. So
Oh
I
my
ended up having
god.
to resign because they wouldn't approve my remote access. And I
You know,
believe that it was tied to that whole ordeal.
why don't you just sue them now?
Because I
Um,
resigned, but I resigned under duress. I could say
right, of
that.
course you did. Look what Chef Tucker just brought up. Don't forget about the arrows for one-way aisles in
Oh my We
stores.
intentionally would go the opposite way of those arrows. My husband would be like, "You see the arrows?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do. That's why I'm
Uh,
going the
I
opposite way
know.
of the
I
arrow."
intentionally would, like, almost pervertedly would stand really close to people in the store. Like, "Hey, how you doing?"
Oh
Like,
my gosh.
oh,
It
I
was just
it's
so funny. I mean, when you give the
oh,
examples of them saying like, "Yeah, it's no different than your bathing suit protecting you from, urinating in a pool and that seeping through your shorts." It just makes no sense. Logic made no sense. And then
no.
you would sit there and not be able to attend your family members' funerals.
Unbelievable.
My grandfather died at that time. He died alone.
Uh,
But yet, in the same week that we had his funeral, they had the George Floyd funeral. And there were
yeah.
hundreds of people in there. And I'm like, oh, well, apparently his gold casket protects the entire room of hundreds of people from getting COVID. And because, what's his name? Reverend Jackson was there and whatnot. Like all the people were there. I think Obama was there too. And I'm like, well,
Wow.
apparently none of these people are getting COVID because it's George Floyd. So I don't know.
I there's so much that happened that, and I'm sitting here getting so pissed off right now again, all over again. like they literally they. Oh. Anyway, so you moved to Florida. You under duress resigned from your company that you worked for, And what happened? You lost everything, went broke? I'm kidding. What happened from there?
So I got another job, and in the meantime, I'm, trying to figure out where my place is. I was always active, whether it was politically or
Yeah.
something, involved in something. And so um I started getting involved in like the child protection space. And so that kind of brings me to where I'm at now. Was I was taking different trainings, I was attending different summits on child protection, whether it was indoctrination, whether it was grooming, whether it was different things, combating trafficking. I started taking courses and attending summits. And I had met Mary Flynn, and I had asked her, hey, what can I do to help kind of move the needle on child protection stuff? And she said, well, I have this piece of legislation. We can't run it, but if you want to, here, take it and run with it. And I looked at it, and I remember seeing that it was an amendment to a grooming bill that actually had been established in Illinois. I later find out that a mom, her name is Michelle Peterson, she was spearheading the amendment to the grooming bill to do penalty enhancements and things like that. But when I had looked at our criminal code, I realized we couldn't even apply that language because we didn't have a grooming definition in our criminal code. So the bill was basically, the definition was to define what it was for an adult to sexually groom a child and outline specific penalties for it. And so we didn't have that definition in our criminal code in Florida. My dad's an attorney, I'm a paralegal, and so we were like, all right, well, let's like do some research. We studied the criminal code inside and out. We looked at the Illinois language, and it had been passed in 2012. So it was 10 plus years old. And so we're like, okay, how can we ramp this up? Knowing that we're in a deep red state, knowing that this is an issue now where adults are sexually grooming and preying on children, how can we ramp this up and make it as strong as possible and give it teeth? So we develop language, we find the dream team. And again, it was all God led. We had two house sponsors, one that had, ties to law enforcement, one that was a pastor. Our Senate sponsor was a former prosecutor. They brought everyone to the table. Florida Department of Law Enforcement, sex crimes, Department of Children and Family, to all discuss how this bill can work, how it can have teeth to it. And we got this bill with virtually no money, no name recognition at our state capital, Tallahassee, and no basic lobbyist or any experience introducing legislation before. And we got it introduced, passed, and signed into law in under 8 months.
Wow.
Um, and got it passed in Iowa at the same time. So we were working with
Wow.
Representative Mark Thompson out of Iowa, and he was the one that championed that over in Iowa.
Wow.
And so from there, that's where I met my now business partner, Dr. Jared Sadolski. He was doing work in counter trafficking. He's retired law enforcement, was in the Coast Guard, and was doing work in counter trafficking. And after I had finished my legislation, I was like, all right, what next? Like, let's go. Let's keep this ball rolling. And yeah, so I started, studying under him, seeing what he was doing, trying to understand his methodology for how he was doing, conducting the research. And then I started going on the research trips. So we had gone to the border when the border was wide open. We had gone to Mexico. We had gone to Central America, South America. We actually interviewed incarcerated traffickers. We
Wow.
worked with Interpol and the National Police Force in Colombia to train them on human trafficking, collaborate on patterns and operations, and recognizing patterns in their operations. So we were working domestically and internationally. And then from that, we would bring that research back and compile it into educational materials for law enforcement, for lawmakers, for
Wow.
community members, and train parents on what we're seeing firsthand in person on the ground, what we're hearing from people who have trafficked individuals themselves, and how we can kind of shape this conversation and provide real real time education materials on these exact matters. And so, with that, we started also working with committees in both the House and Senate side. My business partner had just gotten back from testifying before Congress, and then all of this research had led me to testify before Congress in November of 2024. And then I testified before Congress in July of 2025, and then before the Senate in September of 2025.
Good Lord, so just recently, just last
Yes.
month.
Yes. Yep.
Oh my gosh. Wow. So I didn't know that you'd done it that recent. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Shell says I worry about Allie. She takes on the worst criminals and it's so dangerous. Um and it's Allie is it spelled with an I or a Y? Did I spell your name wrong?
No, you spelled it right. ALI.
ALI. Okay.
It's okay.
Um
She can call me whatever she wants. She can spell it
that's
however she wants.
she's the
She
boss
gets a
lady.
pass. She gets a
She
pass.
so did jeez. Talk
Yeah, I'm
about
throwing a
she
lot at you. I'm not giving you
yeah.
much material to work with, Ken. I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of
It's a
a blank
lot. The
blank slate.
I think that I mean, so when Shell says this, you're taking on the worst criminals. What's that mean? What explain that? What are the worst criminals? Oh, look,
um
Buck said that's the Mexican spelling.
Actually, I'll let you in on a little secret. So my full first name is Alicia. So,
Alicia.
yes. But a lot,
Ah,
the American way of saying that is Alicia, but in Spanish it's Alicia, and that's how it's pronounced. So I always go by Ali because I no offense to any Alicias out there, but I'm an Alicia, not an Alicia. So whenever I hear Alicia, I'm just like, ugh,
is it
no.
spelled the same way, like ALICIA, or
Yes,
is it?
exactly.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow.
So,
So
anyways,
who are the criminals that you're taking on? I mean, are these like perverts sitting at home trying to traffic kids?
no.
What is it? What is it?
Shell's exactly right. So she knows this because I've come into, various spaces and shared this, but we have interviewed incarcerated traffickers. They are usually the ones that we've talked to are linked to cartels and or gangs. Um, we've testified to this. We had testified when I testified in November on the Jalisco New Generation cartel and some of their operations. We were told by one of our sources, you can't go back to, these certain cities in Mexico ever again, and be careful because Jalisco New Generation, you kind of ticked them off. And so we're like, all right. So yeah, you are playing with fire. We have, been to the border. We've had shots fired, around us. We've had cars tail us before. We take, as much precaution as we can and not have it trail into our home life. Most of the time, that's when we're out, by the border or in a foreign country. Um, but yeah, we do have to be very careful because we are messing with operations, that we're messing with people's money streams, and this is not in the millions, this is a billion-dollar industry. And so when you're
Multi.
starting multi-billion-dollar industry, and when you're starting to talk about these various operations, and you're dealing with the worst of the worst. I mean, Americans aren't very familiar with how we know a little bit about cartels. We have more exposure to gangs, but the cartels are very, very vicious. They're very nasty. Ironclad actually just put out a video clip where one of the reporters was doing some undercover work on cartels in the United States, and she said they're very much present here. It's on my X page, by Ironclad, and it was like a day or two ago. But she said cartels are very much present here in the United States. They're in all 50 states, and they are very vicious. People underestimate how much reach and money that they have at their disposal. And one of the things she had cited was just in Georgia, Ken, just in Georgia, an Airbnb owner had called in because he had looked through the security cams on his property and saw what looked like someone was carrying a body.
Oh
And so
my
they call
god.
law enforcement out there, and they end up figuring out that these were cartel members, and it was a deal gone bad where this woman was literally dismembered in the Airbnb's bathtub. Like, that is how these bad actors operate. And so we need to, yes, be very careful. We're sharing information. We generally don't share names unless it's with the proper authorities. But we are working on
Wow.
some very dangerous things. And when it comes to active investigations, we have, my business partner and I have been part of or given cases to law enforcement, and they are active investigations. If we aren't careful and they are tied to us, there can always be fallout when you're speaking out against pure evil. But that's what this
Well,
is pure evil.
you as I think you remember or know that I'm friends with Paul Hutchinson from the Sound of Freedom movie, and um, I know he's done a lot with undercover ops and all kinds of crazy stuff. But you are, man, you are fighting one heck of a battle. The so what for anybody watching right now? What can the average person do to help you? I mean, I feel like we need to get Buck and some of the other Marines and just kind of, stand guard around your house and just kind of follow you in a presidential motorcade type situation. What can people do to help you? I mean, this is serious stuff.
Um, at this point right now, my business partner and I are doing the work under a 501(c)(3). So, guard against trafficking. What people can do is really just make our risks worth it. Make it worth it by helping us get the message, the information out there. And that is what is so important to us. We're willing to put our lives on the line. We're willing to take the risk to protect children, but it doesn't work unless the message and the information can get out there. And my business partner and I don't even care if people remember our names, as long as they remember the message. And the whole intention behind creating the nonprofit was so that the nonprofit lived on, even when, I'm long gone, my business partner is long gone, that the intent and the mission of the nonprofit lives on through what it was intended and created to do. Guard Against Trafficking is a 501(c)(3). If you feel so inclined to donate, that would be amazing because it is the lifeblood of our organization. But again, everything that we do is to get the message out there, whether it's to lawmakers, whether it's when we're training law enforcement, whether it's when we're talking to parents and training students, training communities. It's everything that we do is to raise awareness and to fight human trafficking in all forms: sex, labor, organ, child, illegal adoption, um, everything. We're fighting human trafficking, and it's modern day slavery. Ken, we constantly look back at the stain in America's history when we were talking about slavery, but it's going on in front of us right now. It is going on in front of us right now,
Yep.
and I believe in our conversations, you're a Christian, correct?
Yes, I am. Yeah. Proud one.
This is not just actual warfare, it is spiritual warfare. And I will tell you,
Amen.
every single time I come back from Capitol Hill testifying, I get so sick. And not just because I think it's because of stress. I actually am put out for a couple of days, and there are things where people in this fight just feel consistently spiritually attacked, and it's because you're fighting one of the worst evils out there. Anyone that would dare steal the innocence of a child or harm a child, I mean, that you have to be looking in the eyes of true evil. And so we just need people to stand with us, to unite. I don't care what banner you're under. I mean, I'd prefer red, but red, blue, white, we all need to get together to unite to protect our children, because at the end of the day, that is our future, that is our legacy, that is what we stand to leave behind in this country. And so we just have to do everything that we can to protect them.
You know, I used to run all the tech. I've been in technology and web development for over 30 years, and marketing. And I used to run all the technology for a narcotics officers association, and there were DEA people involved. And I actually put the whole email system together to get it out to all these narcotics officers, the information. And so I was the only civilian that would see some of the stuff that I was putting out. There were, I mean, people don't understand how evil the cartels. I mean, evil. And I mean, I saw videos of people literally getting, you know, dec- I don't want to
Yeah.
say it, and
Yeah.
but having their, heads completely removed, and it was awful. The stuff that I
Unalived. They were
there
unalived,
you
right?
go.
That's
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
that's
with
safe language.
a very dull blade even, and intentionally dull. I mean, these are some really evil entities that we're dealing with. And Shell just said it. Anyone who hurts a child is soulless. I mean, there's like,
Yeah. And it's
yeah,
absolutely true. And I think that people need to realize too, it's not just, a border issue. It's not just an immigration issue. And fine, let's take out the cartels and gangs out of the whole thing.
right.
Because, some people just, they can't understand that piece. Just looking at the white van example, we used to talk about it all the time. The white van at the park, the white van at the end of the street. Well, the white van is not at the end of the street anymore. It's in your living room. You have literally opened a door and allowed anyone to walk through and access your children. And
Yep.
so when they're on their phone, when they're on their tablet, when they're on their computer, when they're on technology, they have access, and the bad actors have access to them. And
Yep.
when we look at registries in our neighborhood, we're appalled by how many predators and registered offenders live in our communities.
Yep.
But the digital realm does not have a registry like that. And they have no boundaries online in which that they feel like they have to adhere to. It's unless they get caught. And so
Yeah.
it's so dangerous, and people need to realize it. Adults too, adults get sextorted too, they get tricked. I mean, how easy is it to get catfish now? You have AI, you have filters upon filters upon filters. It's just
Oh my god.
crazy.
I have I have dealt with that for the last, I don't know, 8 years probably. If I don't know if my wife's still watching or not, but I no, she knows. I used to get about 10 messages a day on my fan page on Facebook from women who've been conned out of money by people using my picture, saying my wife died and I was a widower, and I all this crazy stuff. And I'm talking about tens of thousands of dollars in
Yeah.
some cases. And so that's a whole nother $60 billion industry on top of the multi-billion-dollar industry of these people trafficking children. It's absolutely insane. It's just
Yeah.
absolutely insane what's going on in our world.
Yeah, and that's why I'm just so glad that every time I've interacted with you, I know it's always to, leave a positive message behind. But you've never
Yeah.
shied away from talking about tough conversations. You've never shied away from having those challenging discussions that really help to move the needle forward. And so I really appreciate that, because
Yeah.
we need to have these discussions. It's exactly what Charlie Kirk was wanting to do. He was wanting to have those tough conversations so that we can actually, start to work together in solution to solve real problems. And so that's just what I appreciate about you is like, okay, if you're going to give me a real problem, let's have a real conversation and let's talk about real solutions. Like, I
Yeah.
don't want to just hear complaining and then you do nothing and then you complain the
Right.
next day and then you do nothing. You need to be you need to start leading the change and be an example that you want to see, and then you have a little bit more ability, to wield a heavier sword when you say, hey, I'm doing XYZ, I want my representatives to follow suit. But you already have that, kind of in your war chest of saying, I've done these things and I want you to do them too. You need to do them as my elected representative, as my elected
Yeah.
official.
I'm curious, and I know we're a little over time. If you need to go, tell me. But um, the I'm curious what it was that um, drew you to this. I mean, I know you were unemployed, but what was it that went? I need to get involved in this, and it doesn't seem like it would be a super high paying position. Maybe it is. I don't know, but what was it that drew you into this?
So it's actually interesting to take a step back. So I wasn't actually unemployed. I was working
Oh,
for the county at the time. And when I was working with my business partner, so this is how dedicated to the mission that I was that when I was working with my business partner, I was working for the county and I was working a full
oh,
40 hours. My husband was going through the law enforcement academy at the time. So he actually was staying at the academy in the Panhandle or Tallahassee area, which was 8 hours away. And he could not come home during the week. So I was managing two littles in elementary school, working full time. My husband was away at law enforcement academy, and then I was using my PTO. I when I work, I rarely ever use PTO, so I had so much PTO built up that I was using my PTO to go on these research trips. And so I remember coming back from some of these research trips. One of them was at the border, and we were exhausted and dirty, and it was hot, and just it was a lot, and it was emotionally taxing. And I remember landing, not getting home until like 2 or 3 in the morning, and then having to wake up, take the kids to school, and go to work at 7 in the morning. So I literally got like 3, 4 hours of sleep that night.
wow.
And I remember my boss was like, how was your vacation? And I'm sitting there exhausted. I'm like, good.
Oh
But
my god.
yeah, so when I testified in November, that kind of started changing things. We started meeting people that were supporting efforts to create a nonprofit. And so we ended up creating a nonprofit. And so that is when, a lot of internal conversations started happening, like, how can we actually make this work? How can we kind of dump all of our resources and utilize um, individuals, their talents, and work together to make this actually work. And so that is what we've been doing. Is Guard Against Trafficking is a product of the blood, the sweat, the tears that have been shed for this
Well,
mission, and literally poured into this nonprofit.
so for parting words to the audience, and I want to say this, that I have it scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Guardagainsttrafficking.org is the website, correct? I copied
Yes.
that and pasted it from your email, so I hope it's right.
Oh, it is.
Guard
Thank you.
against
Well, if it's not right, then I have my email that I have to update.
um excuse me, guardagainsttrafficking.org. Everybody listening, if you're listening into this on the podcast networks, please go over to guardagainsttrafficking.org and follow Allie on X. That, I mean, you're very active on X, and I love that about you. So
Thank you.
how what this show's called Breakthrough Walls. We want to help people have a breakthrough today. And I'm going to give you full screen for this, but I want to know, what are your final words of hope and inspiration that you would leave everybody with today to to help them get through this day, make it a better world, what can they do? How can they make their lives better, help you make this a world a better place?
Ooh, that's a very in-depth question. What I would say first and foremost is that not everyone can do what other people do. I don't kick down doors and rescue children. Not everyone interviews incarcerated traffickers or has the ability to do what other people do, but everyone was gifted with a certain skill set. And I say God given, but whatever your faith is, um, you were gifted with a skill set. You were gifted with talents that are unique to you. And so, whatever your passions are, apply those talents, apply it to move the needle forward to really make an impact, a positive impact on our country, on your community, on your children, on our future. And whether it's, medical freedom, whether it's election integrity, whether it's human trafficking, whether it's education, anything that you do, if you're a nurse, if you're a attorney, if you're I could just go on about all of the different backgrounds. There are skill sets and ways that you can apply your skills accordingly. And everyone was given a unique skill set. And so just don't sit on those skill sets, apply them accordingly. And the one thing that I would say is that yes, this administration has a lot of wins right now. He inherited a burning building. And so right now we're trying to just put out the fires. We're trying to recover what's there and try and clean out the rot and the mess. And it can get overwhelming, but you cannot give up. We need to be relentless. We need to be diligent and vigilant all the time, always expecting, holding ourselves to a high standard, always expecting our lawmakers to represent well. And just don't get bogged down by the darkness, even in the space that I'm in. Human trafficking is one of the darkest conversations that you can have, and it can be easy to get weighed down by subjects, or if you lose a battle, you want to win the war. So just keep a good, healthy perspective that while you're fighting for the future, don't forget about living in the present. Be present for your children if you have them. Be present for your spouse or your loved ones. Be present for your family and your friends, or be present out in your community. Touch grass, or in my case, touching sand and palm trees. But just making sure that you're present and living in the present while you're fighting for your future.
There's somebody at your door.
Darn
I
it.
just, I just
That's like
heard
a
that.
universal ringtone. Everyone
I,
knows it. They're like all checking their phones. Oh, someone's
yeah,
over.
I know. I hear it all. Yeah. So, Allie, you are absolutely amazing. I mean, you're absolutely amazing, and I'm
Oh,
sure
thank
you've
you.
heard that a gazillion times. There are people that sit around and wish that the world would change, and there are people like you who don't sit around, but you go out and you make the world change. And I think that's absolutely incredible what you're doing. And
Oh, thank you.
I
You
think
trying to make me cry on camera, Ken? Ugh,
it's amazing.
ugh.
No, I mean it. It's one of the things I preach the most. Like, stop bitching about everything and start doing something about it.
Yeah.
And you're doing something about it, and I think it's incredible. And
Oh, thank you.
the world needs to hear this. We need everybody. If you haven't shared this out yet, please, for the love of God and everything holy, and the children, and the betterment of our world, share this out. And if you already shared it, share it again. And stop worrying about the damn algorithm and just share this message out. I mean, I hear people going, "Oh, the algorithm." I'm like, just share. Like, just share. Stop being an a hole and share. So sorry.
Sharing is caring, Ken.
That's right. That's right. And if you don't, I'm gonna send Buck over to kick your ass. So, um,
And Drax,
so
Drax, well,
and
didn't Drax say he was the no, he said he was like
yeah,
the landscape crew,
the groundskeeper.
groundskeeper.
But yeah, but listen, you're so impressive. My wife is still on here. She never stays for an entire interview, and she's been here the whole time. So that's amazing. She
Thank
does.
you.
I'm kidding. She stays.
Thank you, Mrs. Walls.
Yeah, she's amazing. You have a beautiful heart. Shell says it. So, Allie,
No, thank
you're
you.
now in my top 5 favorite people in the world. I will do everything I can to help you in your cause. And I really want to reiterate this to everyone. Please share this out and get as many eyeballs on the replay of this as possible. Allie, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your beautiful heart and everything that you're doing to help this world be a better place.
Thank you so much, Ken. I appreciate it. And thank you, everyone that tuned in. I mean, you made it so entertaining. I appreciate you all.
All right, listen, you guys all have an amazing day. And I will say one more time, if you haven't shared this out, there is time for you to go ahead and redeem yourself and share this out. We will judge you, by the way. We will. So thank you all so much. Really appreciate it. God bless you all. Allie, God bless you and everything you're doing. Stay with me.
God
I'm going
bless
to
you
end the
too.
show now. Everybody have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. We'll see you later. Bye bye.
Thank you.